Live from downtown Vancouver at the Vancouver Film School campus, it's time for EP Live. Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day. It is great to see all of you and all of you guys. Thank you so much for coming down for EP Live. We have got an awesome episode for you guys today. We've got a couple of former colleagues from the video game journalism scene, Sam Kennedy and James Mielke from Tigertron. They are going to talk about the first game that they are working on together. It's called Jupiter and Mars. They're going to be our guests in just a little bit. But first, of course, we've got to get to our rundown, which today we're going to dedicate to the Notre Dame Cathedral, which tragically has gone up in flames. And I can't imagine how the work people that were working on stuff inside the cathedral feel. Like my heart goes out to them and to all of the people of Paris that watch that, and to all of the fans and appreciators of history and culture around the world that watched all of that go up in flames, which is just so tragic. And I guess a good reminder of how fleeting the beautiful things that we create in our lives can be, right? So let's honor that memory, and hopefully it can be rebuilt, and some new artistic sort of creations can be put inside of the Notre Dame Cathedral. And thankfully, not all of it has burnt down as well. There is some good news out of all of this stuff, but yeah. Let's give the shout out to Notre Dame and to the city of Paris, and let's get started with your rundown. Now, Episode 9 isn't the only awesome-looking Star Wars adventure heading to our galaxy this year. EA and Lucasfilm have revealed Jedi Fallen Order, the new Star Wars game from Apex Legends and Titanfall developer Respawn Entertainment. As expected, it takes place between the prequels and the original trilogy, with players taking the role of a young Jedi being hunted down by the evil Empire. EA stresses that this is a single-player-only game, and it will have no microtransactions, with the studio hoping to avoid all the problems that they had with the loot box-heavy Battlefront 2. Jedi Fallen Order lands November 15th, and the game looks great. They just showed us a little bit of a story teaser trailer with in-game assets, which is great, and I thought it was a very big, telling scenario that they promised no loot boxes and no microtransactions. If this is going to be a way that we're going to market video games, I think we should be shifting back to making video games like this. And if this becomes a back-of-the-box feature, we're not going to try to scam you for more money. Yay! If that's like a way that you're pitching your game, then maybe more game companies should be thinking along those lines. It is a bit weird that this is a live environment here, by the way. We're at 390 West Hastings, so the chairs do clank. But it is a bit weird that the Amy Hennig game and the Visceral Games game that was getting made got canceled, and then this has come up rather abruptly, but I know why. Respawn is awesome, and Respawn showed that they can make fantastic single-player experiences with Titanfall 2, which had a story-driven campaign that nobody expected. It was wonderful, and that was a big reason why it won our, all of our attention and won our hearts, and it was our Rocket and Ray Gun Award winner for that year. I think 2011. I don't know when was this. No, it wasn't that long. 2015? I don't know. Time's flying by. But it was an amazing game when it came out, and those guys are incredible at Respawn. 2011. That was way too long ago, wasn't it? Yeah. Was it 2016? 2016. 2011, 2016. What's 5 years? What's 5 years in an industry that's just hurtling at the speed of light, and games are coming all the time. So that is why, and the game does look hot. I can't wait to play it. That wasn't the only thing, though. They had the Clone Wars trailer, which looks incredible. There was the Resistance Season 2 panel. The Star Wars live show had all kinds of people talking about Galaxy's Edge, which opens up at the end of May in Disneyland, the theme park attraction. But the thing that just took my breath away, and certainly Episode 9's teaser trailer looks awesome. I can't believe that the Emperor is back with Roll It Again. I loved that. But the Mandalorian, I don't know if you guys caught all of the leak stuff that was all over the internet. Don't watch leak stuff. Yeah, right. But it was all over the internet, and so I consumed all of it. I watched as many different weird angles that people shot on cell phone. Don't do that, by the way. That sucks when you do that. But thank you for doing that, because I was able to watch some of the clips, and God, that show looks amazing. It's definitely like something out of the old West, but fused with classic Star Wars. And I think Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are going to be a force to be reckoned with. See what I did right there? Okay. All right, let's move on. It looks like more and more likely that a sequel to the PlayStation 4 exclusive Horizon Zero Dawn is on the way. Guerrilla Games has been rumored to be working on a follow-up ever since the first game was released in 2017, and now we have another reason to think that it's coming. Actress Janina Gavankar, who appeared in DLC for the first game, was asked about working on the project during her appearance at Star Wars Celebration. She said that it was incredible, but just wait until you see the sequel, which sounds like she may have accidentally let slip that the unannounced sequel is on the way. No, I'm sure she got one of those. No official announcements have been made, but Horizon 2 would be a great launch window title for the PlayStation 5, which is rumored to be landing this holiday season or in probably early 2020. It's going to be interesting to know, to find out when the PlayStation 5 is coming. But yeah, I think that a Horizon 2 game makes a ton of sense, but I think a lot of the launch titles for the PlayStation 5 will also play on the PlayStation 4. I think definitely the third-party companies are going to hedge their bets and release titles that will work on existing machines and will be better on the PlayStation 5, and I wouldn't put it past Sony to do that with their own title. It worked for Breath of the Wild for Nintendo, so I think we'll all be cool with that if a Horizon 2 game runs on both current gen and next gen. But it's coming, man. It's exciting. That was a terrific experience, and major accolades have to continue to be going in Guerrilla Games' way, because that game came out at the same time as The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and it was still phenomenal. It still captured our hearts and our attention because it was so well made. And what a surprise from Guerrilla, who had kind of just been focused on first-person shooters for so long. I am missing Killzone, by the way. I do want another Killzone game from Guerrilla Games. I was thinking about that the other day. All right, one of the world's most famous video game characters isn't finished raiding the big screen. A sequel to last year's Tomb Raider movie is going forward. Deadline reports that MGM and Warner Brothers have begun developing a screenplay, with Alicia Vikander expected to reprise the role of Lara Croft, although no word yet on who might direct. The last film floundered at the box office in North America, but overperformed internationally, particularly in China, making it just one in a growing lineup of Hollywood bombs that have been saved by the Chinese market. Expect the studio to keep that in mind while developing the next film. It is very weird. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was pretty cool, but it was also safe. And it was weird that it was a PG-13 film based around an R-rated or an M-rated video game experience that got very, very grotesque, very bloody. Lara Croft in that first reboot game back in 2011. I think everything came out in 2011. We're gonna say that today. No, but when that first rebooted Tomb Raider game came out, it shocked us. She just went through hell in that thing, and Alicia Vikander did go through some hell. She went through heck, I think, in the movie, and I think she needed to go through a little more hell, and they needed to show us a little bit. Obviously they bet on everybody coming, and it's a big family experience to go and see Tomb Raider because she's so beloved and well known. But if the game that the movie is based on, and the game series that the movie is based on, clearly it is an M-rated experience, they should have gone a little darker. They should have gone heavier and freaked everybody out and made it a little bit more palpable than it was. As it was, it came off as a little bit of a Alicia Vikander got stuck at the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland or something, It just wasn't a punch enough. But I did dig it, and there were some good choices in there. My favorite scene in that movie was the London bicycle chase scene where everybody was chasing her and she was spilling paint behind her. I thought that was clever. I think she's phenomenal, and she's a good choice for Lara Croft as well. James Cameron has recruited someone from the final frontier for the new Avatar movies. After playing not one but two characters on Star Trek Discovery, Malaysian actress Michelle Yeoh is heading to Pandora. She's been cast in the upcoming sequels to Avatar as a new character, a human scientist named Dr. Karina Moog, although it's unclear if she'll be a hero or a villain. It's also unclear how many of the Avatar sequels she'll be in. Cameron is currently filming no less than 4 movies back-to-back, with the idea being that filming them all at once will keep production costs down. The first one hits Earth in December 2020. I also saw that Vin Diesel was on the set of Avatar, and there was a lot of speculation that he might be driving a race car around the streets of Pandora. Yeah, these are clearly going to be huge movies. Sam Worthington couldn't be happier that these are coming out because we've all forgotten his name. And same with Zoe Saldana, who's run into some rough patches recently in the Marvel Universe. So I think it's going to be very interesting. Never count this man out, you know. Even The Abyss, which bombed for him, is still an incredible movie. And I think every James Cameron fan out there would agree with me on that. The guy is very, very, very interesting. Whatever he kind of steps up to the batter's box to kind of smack out there, you got to pay attention to it, because more often than not, it's a home run. And the guy is, you know, just a student of the art of filmmaking and understands every facet of it. Must be murder to work for him, because he's, you know, he's expecting the best out of everybody. But look at what his career has given the world. You know, incredible stuff. So I'm excited about Avatar, even though none of us talk about it anymore. I'm excited to see what he brings to the table, and if they can reach the heights that the first Avatar movie reached, which I loved. I thought it was incredible. But yeah, nobody talks about Avatar anymore. It's interesting. All right, that's going to do it for our rundown today. Let's take a look at this day in everything cool. Welcome to This Day in Everything Cool for April 15th. On this day in 1947, racial equality hit a home run. Jackie Robinson played his first game as a member of the Brooklyn Dodgers, becoming the first African-American player on an MLB team. Robinson had made a name for himself playing for black-only leagues, which at the time were called Negro Leagues, and he had already broken another color barrier the previous year by becoming one of the first black players in the International League, playing for the Montreal Royals. Playing for the MLB was a whole new league. Obviously, the managers have been notoriously reluctant to allow black players onto their teams, owing to the racism that was even more prevalent in the United States at the time than it is today, and Robinson was subjected to untold levels of racial bigotry when he first joined the Dodgers. His skills on the field eventually won over many of his critics, and other black players soon followed him into the MLB and other major league sports. Today, he's considered one of the greatest baseball players of all time. On April 15, 1955, the restaurant industry was changed forever. The first McDonald's franchise restaurant opened its doors. The very first McDonald's locations had actually opened a few years earlier in Southern California and were a family-owned operation run by the McDonald brothers, but their popularity led to businessman Ray Kroc buying the franchise rights and opening up his own McDonald's-branded restaurants in other parts of the country. The restaurants, with their signature burgers, fries, and fast service, were an instant hit, with hundreds and eventually thousands of locations opening up worldwide. The popularity of fast food and efforts on the part of the owners to increase profitability have arguably led to more unhealthy eating habits, not to mention the fact that most fast food employees don't make a living wage. Today, McDonald's operates almost 40,000 locations worldwide, serving 68 million customers every day. Make sure you don't eat too much fast food because you might get diabetes. Thankfully, on April 15, 1923, diabetes got a lot less deadly. Canadian doctors Frederick Banting and Charles Best made insulin injections available to the general public across North America, providing the first reliable way to combat diabetes. Insulin had actually been discovered a few decades earlier, but Banting and Best were the first researchers to discover the positive effects that it could have with patients suffering from diabetes, and their formula for synthesizing it into a convenient injection changed the world, saving countless lives. The pair won a Nobel Prize in medicine later that same year. Insulin is still used to this day. don't you love all the black and white footage that you see on EP Live? It's fascinating taking a trip back in time, isn't it? We've got an awesome pair of guests on EP right now, a couple of guys that I've been wanting to bring to the show for a long time, Sam Kennedy and James Mielke from Tigertron. Welcome, gentlemen. It is good to see you guys.
Well, thanks for having us. Yeah. Good to see you.
Where are you right now?
We're in New York.
You're in New York. You're in Tiger.
And we're in the basement of James's apartment, which is our studio.
Very cool. And a lot of games out there are made in garages and basements and home offices. You know, like even Devolver doesn't have a big, studio space. Everybody kind of works from wherever they can work from these days, and kind of speaks to the nature of sharing code and sharing development across the internet, right? Which is a big part of Jupiter and Mars, isn't it?
Yeah, we're living that life right now. Yeah, one day when we're beaming our from a penthouse studio somewhere, we'll let you know. But yeah, right now we're keeping it low key, just because that's a fiscally responsible way to be an independent developer.
Yeah,
people
want to. But also, yeah.
Go ahead, Sam.
To add to that too, though, but to your point, I think that's really what we also what we wanted to do with the studio too. We don't want to be this like giant game developer with have to hire tons and tons of people, mainly because there's a lot of great talent out there that we've wanted to work with that aren't just based in New York. For instance, the two developers we've been working on with for Jupiter and Mars, they're actually based in Australia. And they're an awesome bunch, Wicked Witch and Tantalus, and we've always wanted to work with them, so kind of like the stars aligned for this project.
Well, and you guys know, you've been covering entertainment, you've been covering the video game scene for a long time. I mean, there's a lot of creators out there that work out of their home studio, and some of the biggest effect shots and some of the coolest kind of effects work that we even see in movies is often kind of subcontracted to one person that works on stuff. And I remember, I forget the guy's name, he did the title sequence for Saw, and he was the hot, sought after visualist, but he just worked from home, and all of these movie studios would just give him shots and just say, go and work from home and just do it that way.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful life.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, if you can have the creativity and the comfort of your own surroundings all at the same time, there's not really much better than that.
That's awesome. How did you guys meet?
We met actually way back in the day, probably 1999, I think it was, when we were both working at GameSpot at the time. I'd moved out to San Francisco to work there. James was still here in New York freelancing originally, and then you moved out as well.
The first time Sam got on my radar was when I submitted a story to a news story to GameSpot, because I covered the Japanese gaming scene then. I sent them the story, and then it went up on the site with Sam's name in the byline. I was like, who the blank is this Sam Kennedy guy? That's
always stealing credit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice work, Sam.
Yeah.
Is that the way the game is coming together too?
Yeah.
Jupiter and Mars by Sam Kennedy.
Now, James, I've known you forever because you were actually on early seasons of EP. I think we had a deal with EGM back in the day, and we went and covered. We got expert sort of observations from you, and we put you in a bunch of episodes. I remember back then. Did you see a career for yourself making games then? Was that the dream, or did you want to stay in journalism, but journalism kind of died all around you?
What's funny is that I never really had any designs on getting into the game industry in particular. It just sort of happened because I did a couple fan reviews for fun on the internet, but I tried to write them in a very maybe more mature, editorially responsible way. Yep. And then GameSpot saw them online, and then they contacted me through my email link. This was the wild west of the internet, but they had my email link, and they wrote me and said, hey, would you like to write for GameSpot? And that one thing led to another, and that's just how it ended up coming to be. But as far as games are concerned, it seemed like a natural or logical kind of transition, because I don't think I was never a writer. if I've ever done any solid work as a writer, it's just been through, sheer enthusiasm. But I think I've always been an illustrator, so making games is a way to bring characters and ideas that I have to life. So it just sort of, as long as you have the motivation to try and put these things together, that's what came of it.
But you can't get the games journalist out of either of us, really. James especially still does a lot of occasional freelance writing, and
I still do stuff for some sites or magazines for fun, just because I get to talk to developers that I've never spoken to before. So if something like that pops up, I'm always there.
Yeah. It's fun to bang the drum, isn't it? And kind of spread the word about this interesting medium that has so many stories to tell out there. This is your first game, right, Sam? You haven't shipped a game before?
Yeah, no, not from the developer side. I worked in marketing with Edelman and Activision for a whole bunch of years. Building kind of community around Destiny and Call of Duty and all of that. But from an actual hands-on development standpoint, no. And it's exciting. It's I finally understand, I think, why games are so difficult to make.
We kept on saying, can we make this a little bit more like Gunstar Heroes?
Yeah, I know.
And I was like, no, that's a different game.
No, I mean, it was, I think similarly, I don't know that I ever set out to, make that chart my career to, write about games and then develop games, but it just sort of, I love new challenges, and I love games, and I love now the being afforded the opportunity to work on them, and just sort of, definitely the last 2 years have poured pretty much all of my energy and just everything into this game. So I hope it turns out really well and people love it, but it's very different than in the past, where let's say if you were writing an article, even working on a magazine, or it was sort of once you were done with it, it was just sort of that's it. You were kind of it's very linear almost in a way, and game development is so iterative, I guess. There were so many things that I learned along the way where we made this one change and then something else changed in the game, and we had to kind of always decide what's the best what do we not want to do also. Yeah.
James, you worked with Tetsuya Mizuguchi and he's a friend of yours and a collaborator, and apart from Rez and all of this in Space Channel 5, he's also just one of these diehard Sega geniuses that worked. Didn't he do Sega Rally? Wasn't that one of his games?
Yeah, Sega Rally.
So
and
how much did you?
Card Championship.
Incredible. How much did you learn from him? And now you're kind of that conduit to that experience. And do you find yourself sharing that with people like Sam and your partners in Australia?
Yeah, there are certain lessons I learned when I was at Q Entertainment working on Child of Eden and Luminous Electronic Symphony. Our whole concept was synesthesia, which is a psychological condition, but the way we look at it is for every action that you put on screen, there has to be a visual and an audio reaction, so that way the player feels maximum feedback, right? So on a purely mechanical level, we're always trying to do those things to make sure that every time you do something, you've done something, so that you have that player feedback, and so you're more engaged about it. From an aesthetic perspective, as you'll see in Jupiter and Mars, there's a lot of neon kind of deep, high contrast, glowing visuals and stuff. And that's an extension of the things that we did in Child of Eden, and of course Luminous. And those are things that that's an aesthetic that I'm personally interested in, 1980s Tron aesthetics, Tempest, the whole vector graphics movement, that stuff.
You're speaking my language, James.
Exactly. Blip, blip, bleep, bloop, blop. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And yes, we do make a conscious effort to bring that into what we're doing now and hopefully in the future as well.
Has Mizuguchi-san played Jupiter and Mars? And I'm curious what he thought of the game.
Yeah, that's actually just what I was going to say. It was we showed it to him last summer, I think it was. And it was sort of like a career/life highlight to see him playing this game that we'd been working on. And
he had his goggles on. He was literally reaching out to touch manta rays floating overhead. And what did he call it? beautiful marine adventure or something like that. It was really hysterical the way he just sort of like bust out this little phrase describing the game. But yeah, it was great to show it to him.
Yeah. That's awesome. So it's a hard thing to ship one of these things, and Sam, you are learning that firsthand. I think, James, you've probably gone through the ringer a few times, so you probably
trying to Gray
talk. Yeah, you're talking Sam off of the ledge there. No, it's going to be okay, but it's
like,
imminent.
Don't jump, Sam, don't jump.
It's imminent, and you guys are about to ship. So, are you able to exhale now? Or are you able to kind of just celebrate the reception of the game? How do you feel right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think we're exhaling just yet.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, honestly though, it's tough because when the game is pretty much done. We're still actually working on a couple last like patch updates for it. But but really for us, it's sort of like I just want people to be able to play it right now as opposed to like waiting till next week.
Well, when does it goes up on Monday, right? Yeah, Earth Day in North America. Europe and Japan follow very, very shortly after that. But once we start getting feedback and stuff like that, if people are having a good time, I think that's when we can let some of the air out. But up until that point, we're like, So.
I will say, and this has been a little bit weird for me too, but so I've been playing basically the game every single day for the last like year and a half, and with the point of being able to do a lot of testing, see how things are coming along, all of that, a lot of bug testing in the later stages. As of late, I still actually find myself playing the game, and I don't know. I think it's just more out of like now habit. I feel like me playing it more will make it better somehow or something like that. But I do think maybe it's a testament to that. I am really happy with the way it turned out, and like I hope like people will actually try to find every last treasure in the game and every last little detail that we put into it.
We've had the game at a lot of public events around the world, and the best feeling though is like when we see a really diverse crowd of people playing the game and walking away with smiles on their faces. It's certainly something you have to play. And if you do have VR, because it's playable both ways, if you do have VR, you should definitely try it in VR, because I think that is the way to play it.
Yeah.
We can count the number of games that we've been able to play as a dolphin on one hand.
That's true.
And so, what was the pull for you guys? Why did you want to play as dolphins, and why was this an important artistic creation to share with the world? And why was VR the medium of choice to kind of get it to everybody? Although you can play without VR, I think this is really about a VR experience, though, too, right?
Yeah, when I first came up with the idea, it was actually more around 2011. I was actually still working.
2011.
2011. Yeah, today is brought to you by 2011.
I was still working at Q Entertainment. I just moved to recently to Tokyo, and I had seen the movie The Cove, which is about an annual dolphin culling in Taiji, Japan.
Oh, I couldn't watch that movie. I remember that. Yeah,
right?
I hovered over it, and I'm like, nope, I can't watch that.
It's gut wrenching. But what the documentary filmmakers do is really, really impressive. So there is an element of hope, and because of the fact that they raise awareness, through their medium, through this filmmaking medium, that inspired me to do something with games. I thought like, well, why aren't we using games to bring attention to to issues and in a cool way that a whole new realm of gamers like that might be tuning out documentaries. Maybe they'll be more engaged if they see this information in a game. Yeah. So that's where I started thinking about like a game about dolphins, and then for some reason I was listening to Frank Sinatra, and I was listening to Fly Me to the Moon, and then he's got that line, I wonder what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars, and I thought that would be a name for like two characters. Like I was just like, all right, let's just go with it. There's no real deep thought process behind it, but that's where it came from. Yeah. So
and I think on the VR front, I think for us it was like VR was this huge inflection point in gaming. Just a new way to tell stories and actually put yourself into the environments. And, it's especially for this game too, when you're swimming through, submerged London or New York, that just even from day one, when we were thinking about what could Jupiter and Mars be, that idea in VR was just really powerful to us. And, so we basically started there and built off of that.
A quick metaphor is like when you watch a movie like, Planet of the Apes, and you see the Statue of Liberty on the beach at the end, right? You watch it on a TV, it's like, okay, cool, like I get it, striking imagery. But if you're able to put a headset on and jump into the movie and be right there with the Statue of Liberty on the beach, that's the difference, And Sony saw that too, because up until that point, they didn't have anything like that in their catalog, and they thought, wow, this would be so good in VR, so let's do this.
Yeah, it really does feel like Sony is doubling down, if anything, on VR. I mean, they just had their VR video reveal. They've got Iron Man coming out. We know that there's some VR plans for PlayStation 5.
Yep.
Why do you think VR is so important to Sony, and what has it been like working with Sony? Because I know they've been a great big partner for you guys.
It's been pretty amazing working with Sony. I mean, they have just been so supportive, like not only North America, but Europe and Japan as well. So we're really getting a lot of global support, which for a small group like us, it's a huge, huge difference. And that just says a lot about their, it's not just lip service at E3. They're really helping support independent developers. Why is VR so important to the future? I don't know. I think it's from my perspective, it's just a really awesome new medium. I mean, it resets everything.
Right.
If you made Pac-Man in VR, and all of a sudden you're the one running down the hallway, and you turn a corner and there's
heart
Blinky
attacks
there, right? That's just amazing. You can take the simplest game concept and it just reinvents everything. But besides, there's so much more potential and upside that hasn't been tapped yet.
Yes.
So once those things start happening, I mean, you don't want to not be there. So I think by that virtue.
Yeah, and like all the other technology too, like once the form factor keeps getting better and it's untethered and all that, like VR is just going to keep getting way better, more and more people playing with it. So I think Sony's smart to be investing heavily into it, and
Nintendo is in on this now. Nintendo has VR.
Sony's not alone. So obviously, if Nintendo's dipping their feet in, then they must be on the right path.
Yeah.
And Oculus is still in it, and there is other VR makers as well. So I think it's something that's going to stick around for until it proves itself.
Awesome. Blake is an amateur oceanographer, I think. He says, "Can the dolphins get stoned on pufferfish?"
Yes, they can.
They can.
Yes, they can.
Whoa.
If we had a little bit more time and a little bit more budget, we probably would have put a mode in where every time you ate a pufferfish, you would have gone on a psychedelic trip. But that might have to wait for a sequel.
The game looks like a psychedelic trip.
Fingers crossed.
I'm curious, you guys put in some true sort of gamer sort of missions and things like this. It's not just all experiential.
Right.
It feels to me like, was there an argument about that back and forth? Were you trying to just sort of float and be the Dolphins, or were you saying, no, we've got to give gamers real quests? They got to go and save things. They got to go and bash through things and discover things.
It was always designed and destined to be a real game, so to speak. But what we wanted to do was we wanted to strip back everything that was inessential. We didn't. Our biggest probably gamey thing is like what we call the heart ring, which is just a very simple sliver, like with a kind of a quest pointer, and then also a marker that shows you where Mars is in relation to you. But other than that, we didn't want to have a HUD because we didn't want to have things that a dolphin wouldn't have, for example. Yeah. So we tried to keep it as organic as possible, but there is a very Metroid kind of progression through things. Things are gated. You have to get certain power-ups like Aqualung in order to go deeper into the ocean, because dolphins in real life only stay about 30 feet from the surface. Right. So in order to go deeper, you have to obtain an ability that lets you go deeper.
Yeah, I think for us too, it's like we wanted to make a game like the games that we love. To be honest, like it's there you can, if you play it, you'll definitely see. I think players will definitely see a lot of those inspirations, whether it's Metroid or whatnot. yeah, I think there was like trying to find that right balance of letting people just explore on their own versus holding their hand at the right places. That was something that we spent a lot of time maybe not arguing about, but just trying to finesse it and get it just right. Yeah.
So there's a real mystery to kind of uncover as you're diving deeper and going farther into the game.
Yeah. There are things that are hidden in the depths of our future ocean, and I think there's a lot of cool things to find. But hopefully, what people will walk away with is the feeling that they played a game with memorable characters and a memorable outcome, and that they'll think about it in the future just the way we think about our favorite games of the past.
Right. And I guess I would say too, like I hope that we kind of had to experiment a little bit as we were trying to tell some of the story through kind of in-game VR cinematics. And I'm very curious, when we talk about what kind of waiting on reception and stuff like that. I'm very curious how people respond to that, and hopefully everybody really enjoys it. But I think we were, let's say, somewhat experimental in that respect. So I'm excited to let people kind of really experience some of those story scenes, especially later in the game, in VR.
Awesome. Have you guys been in touch with the designer or anybody that worked on Echo the Dolphin?
Yeah, that comes up a lot. Ed Annunziata, is that
how you say
his name?
Yeah.
We have not been. I actually reached out to him one time to see if he'd be interested in doing kind of a roundtable, just because we did have this thing in common, but I hadn't heard back from him, so that didn't happen. But
let's make that happen. I think that'd be incredible. I would love to see that.
That would be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. But I've never, oddly, he was one of the few people, well, not few, but one of the people I never got a chance to talk to when I was, writing about games.
Same.
Yeah, no.
Yep. I've never met him either, but he is coming up right. He's got a new Space War game or something like that out there right now. Yeah. So
maybe you can make this happen.
I'll try. Yeah, I think that would be rad. I think it'd be fascinating. And my last question is about the Save the Ocean element of this game, and I'm wondering if you are working with any organizations. You've got it being developed in Australia, and they've got their threat against the coral reef down there. Keeping our oceans healthy, I think, is a very important endeavor for all of us on Earth. But I'm wondering if you're working with any groups to kind of help spread the love and the message around your game.
Yeah, we're working with two organizations. Sea Legacy is the first, and the Ocean Foundation is the second.
Cool. And
both of those organizations they don't really overlap in what they do. Sea Legacy raises awareness through their photography exhibits, and they do a lot of things, but primarily they draw attention to these the issues facing the planet with photography. It sparks conversation. The Ocean Foundation has an initiative where they actually raise money to plant seagrass, because seagrass absorbs most of the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which basically makes our planet livable. So both of their missions are incredibly important, and we've worked with both of them. Both of those video games are not the easiest thing to communicate to people who don't play video games.
Absolutely.
So the fact that both of these organizations were willing to work with us and take a chance on sharing their message with a huge untapped audience, speaks a lot to their, their progressive outlook, and they were like, okay, we understand that this could be very important, because you change a few minds, or you raise awareness with the right people, they can take that passion into their own lives and help in their own ways. So for us, that was really important, not only for the credibility, but also because that literally is part of our mission.
That's awesome.
One thing too is that Christina Mittermeier, the co-founder of Sea Legacy, she actually does the narration in the game.
Oh, wow.
She loved the story so much, and wanted to be a part of the game actually. So we got her to.
Which is great, because one, we have a woman's voice in our game. She represents the narration of the characters, the tribe of ancient Wales in the game, called the Elders, which is almost like a Native American tribe passing down the legend of Jupiter and Mars through the ages. Yeah. And the way she actually says the story is just really cool. I get goosebumps every time I hear her narration. It's so good.
But we also we also do want the game to give back as well. Like we are actually going to donate some of the profit to the ocean organizations that we work with.
That is amazing, you guys. I've got a question here from SamIam111. How does your game separate itself with other Dolphin-led games? It's a good question. How do the controls for your game separate itself from other Dolphin types of games out there?
Well, for one, you are controlling two characters. You're controlling two characters at once, somewhat in the way that you control two characters in Eco, or you're holding a person's hand in Eco. In Jupiter and Mars, you're playing as Jupiter from first person. You have certain abilities that you utilize from her perspective, especially the echolocation, which lights up and scans the area. But you also have Mars on the trigger. So anytime you need like him to do something very action oriented, you send him to ram open a gate or a door or a shell to unlock a treasure or something like that. So you are in control of both characters, which I think is a pretty unique dynamic. And considering how few Dolphin games there are, I think that's pretty much it right there.
Well, and plus you put the headset on and you are the Dolphin. It's
right.
It's an awesome idea, you guys, and I have to congratulate you on making this dream a reality. I'm very curious to see how the game does for you, but also, is it too soon to ask you what you're working on next? Can you give us a tease? Is it going to be another VR game?
Well, what I will say is that we are working on a concept that still exists within our shared universe. I mean, we spent so much time crafting this sort of future Earth to show like what. It's like an I Am Legend thing, right? It's like after mankind disappears for a certain amount of time, how does the planet start to reclaim itself? The next concept that we have, and pretty much all future concepts for the foreseeable future, will take place on this planet and explore different facets. So this one is in the ocean. The next one might be on land or in the sky, but it's going to show the planet from a very, very unique perspective from the eyes of different creatures.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. You guys keep it up. Very, very happy for both of you and proud of both of you, and can't wait for people to get their hands on this game. I'll have some thoughts on it after I get a little bit deeper, no pun intended. But thank you so much for joining us. James Mielke and Sam Kennedy. Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much, Vic.
Yeah. All right, let's go to my review on the run of a very cool animation project. Netflix has brought us a new series called Love, Death Plus Robots, and they partnered up with David Fincher, the avant-garde filmmaker who's given us all kinds of really cool but maybe sometimes creepy crawly entertainment, and that kind of fits with the mood and the vibe of Love, Death Plus Robots. This is a series of micro episodes. This is 18 episodes. None of them are that long. Maybe the longest is around 15 minutes or so. It feels incredibly experimental, and it's a really, it's a showcase for all kinds of different animation styles. The animators have been given free rein to get as gritty and grimy and as violent and overtly sexual as they want. You're going to see a lot of boobs. You're going to see a lot of penises in this thing, and you're going to see a ton of gore.
Stop being a whiny pussy.
Lots of things are getting hacked off, and heads will be crushed, and people are going to get skewered and devoured and exploded, and it kind of played for me like a little bit of an animated heavy metal magazine almost. Heavy metal has a long history of being sort of an adult oriented cartoon or comic booky type of experience, and that's what this series does. And it examines our fascination with technology. There's shades of stuff that we've seen in Ghost in the Shell and Matrix and all kinds of other stuff in here. A lot of people hunted down by some really gross evil throughout these different series. One of them that stands out is this woman looks through a window and she sees another woman being murdered, and then she's chased by the killer, and they go through weird sex clubs and all kinds of stuff, and she's naked for the whole thing. And then I'm not going to reveal the twist, but the animation style was incredible, and they play a lot in this series. Even though the animation styles are completely different, they play a lot with getting close to photoreal and animating faces and animating body movements in a kind of a hyper-real, super kinetic kind of sense, and it's extraordinary. It's amazing work. Even if you're repulsed by some of the content within these little micro stories, it's hard to quibble with the fact that there is just some extraordinary work in there. And it isn't just all of this, you know, line-drawn, comic booky or sort of hyper-real type stuff in there, too. There's some more traditional anime-style things where this robot that transforms into this kind of animal becomes a robot later on. There's a robot sort of vacuum cleaner that becomes incredibly sentient and a little bit more powerful and then gets into creating beautiful artwork. And we go on a whole journey through this artist's viewpoint of the universe. Some trippy stuff. I'm trying not to spoil any of the little pieces in here. I really dug this one where there were a bunch of these, you know, farmers that had these giant mech suits, and they get this alien invasion that comes at them, and they got to deal with it. And so they jump into their suits, and they're wiping out all of this alien infestation. I thought that was really well made. And actually, there's episodes like that where you're like, man, I wish this could be fleshed out and become a full feature. That would be really cool. I also like the one where Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Topher Grace are actual live action participants in this animated bit where they open their freezer and there's like this little tiny civilization that's growing inside of their freezer and it escalates through time super quickly. Some interesting ideas there for sure. Overall, I think this series is worth investing your time into. Be prepared to be a little squeamish during some points and maybe pissed off a little bit. There's some horrific stuff that happens to people in here and not all of it is cool with me, you know? Like I was like, okay, that just felt wrong and I felt gross and I kind of needed to take a shower.
Okay, bud, we're gonna get through this.
But the cool thing is that it's not a massive time investment and nothing really overstays its welcome. I think these little shorter bursts of entertainment, even if it's entertainment that challenges you, you know, keeps you compelled. And you can kind of walk away and then go back because it's an anthology series, so you're not really following a plot line. So you can just jump in for a little bit, be challenged, walk away, think about it, and then go back and watch it all. And that's kind of how I consumed this first season. It's a very interesting exercise, and I applaud Netflix for going forward with this. Damn fine work by the animators and the artists, and the actors as well. I mean, this is a true showcase of some really terrific talent. I'm going to give Love, Death Plus Robots an 8 out of 10. Definitely not for the kiddies, that, but our buried treasure might be. Today's buried treasure suggestion comes from David Oxford, otherwise known as LBD Night Train on Twitter. He says, check out Garfield Caught in the Act, which is a 1995 Sega Genesis game. There was also a Game Gear game. I never played that. Not a big fan of the Game Gear. But the Sega Genesis had lots of great action platformers out there, and Garfield is a routine one. It doesn't really elevate in terms of game design, but what makes Garfield Caught in the Act special is the idea that you are thrown into a television set by this bad guy named Glitch, and then you play through your levels as if they are different television shows or different movies on TV or something. So you've got like an ancient Egypt thing, you've got like a cyberpunk thing, and the level that really just stole my heart is this black and white level that plays like an old detective noir thing. And Garfield is in color, but the world is in black and white, and it just was such a clever idea. And what was cool too about this game is that Jim Davis, the guy that actually drew Garfield for the comics, the creator of Garfield, actually drew the sprites and laid down some of the artwork for this game, which is awesome. And the animation was pretty cool, and all of the other Garfield characters are really nicely rendered in this sucker as well. It's really more of a big treat for Garfield fanatics or people that dig great art on the Sega Genesis more than it is an awesome game. It's still a pretty fun game, but the controls and the mechanics are a little clumsy, a little clunky. Still worth checking out, and because so much love was put into this title, it is absolutely a buried treasure. All right, yeah, Garfield Caught in the Act. There's a little bit of everything in this show today, including a new game that looks a lot like Burnout from people that made Burnout. Here is Dangerous Driving, and to help play it is our good friend Warco. Yay! Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you.
How's it going?
Look it up. I got to start wearing suits on this damn show.
No, you don't have to. I just
so
came
sharp.
from work, you know.
All right,
so.
okay. Well, jump on in. This
Yes.
is Let's Play and Chat, and we're playing on the MSI P65 laptop, which I reviewed not too long ago. Still love this thing.
Super fancy.
It's
yeah.
very fancy. I didn't talk about there's actually a fingerprint sensor in the thing to just speed up getting into the Division 2. But we're going to play a little bit of this, and you know the deal. It's Let's Play and Chat, so go ahead and chat at me if you've got any questions or comments about what you've seen today or in general, thoughts on Star Wars, whatever you want to do. Sam I Am 111, it's good to see everybody. It's fantastic to have you all here, by the way, right?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Ty Fish is in there. We got Zerum and CapMax Gaming. We got Blair Farrell. Thanks for all the love, Blair. You rock. Jordan Cunningham, Barcode Teacup. And we are racing really fast.
Dangerous driving.
And very dangerously.
Just like my commute.
Yeah.
Every day.
Don't try this at home. But Sam I Am says, haha, Garfield caught in the act. I remember the Easter egg the developer left in the pause screen where if a button combo was entered there, it would reveal his girlfriend's name. How cool is that? That's fantastic. I didn't even know about that. They brought this one up on the Player One podcast. I like how they use Spotify to get around the licensing. Yes, I noticed that in the options, just as I was turning the music off, you can actually pump in your Spotify license, which is pretty cool. I'm just going to boost this up just to see how that looks.
This is on the Epic Games Store.
This is, yeah. Looks pretty good, right?
Yeah, it looks pretty good. Burnout.
Yeah, it's Burnout, yes. Let's see. Oh, and VR Grid is here. Thanks for joining us. I know you only ever think about or talk about VR stuff, so we will try to entertain you with this non-VR moment. Although if we move in really fast and do this, does this feel more VR? VR-like? Ty Fish says, Rocket, Warco! We got a heart from CapMax Gaming. Thank you for the heart. Let's see. Any comments or questions? Throw them at us. We got an O brother from Adrian Leon. It looks like Ocean Res, CapMax said, about Jupiter and Mars. I love that name, and I love the story of how that name came to be. I think it's great. VR Grid, I thought I'd let them know Tetris Effect was named Game of the Year by Eurogamer as well. I do recall them already telling you about Giant Bomb. Oh, I think that's for VR Game of the Year, Tetris Effect. I played it in VR. And I thought it was cool, but it was Tetris. I thought that it was going to be more like VR-y, if that makes sense. Can I use it as an adjective? You know what I mean? I thought there would be like things flying at me, like, and it didn't really do that. It was just a cool environment.
How often do you use PSVR? Is it like a staple for you, or?
No, it usually takes, like I'll play Jupiter and Mars, and it takes a big game sort of getting released.
Yeah.
And I don't have the room, so I'm not the stand-up guy, plug in my Move controllers.
Yeah.
You know, I got the Creed boxing game, and I want to give it a shot, but I'm just not going to do it. I might play that on Rift on this, because I can put this anywhere, and I can set the, but like my setup where my PSVR is, it's, no, I've got like a cockpit for a spaceship kind of thing, or a race car, but, and those games are great in VR, but I don't have the room to do all of the fancy room scale stuff that's out there right now. But this laptop was what I'm pointing at here, that the MSI P65 ran the Oculus stuff that I threw at it beautifully. So I still dig it, but it is a lot, you know, like we have to get to the point of it not being so many wires and so many things and all kinds of stuff that you got to plug in. I have the first gen PlayStation VR as well, which has the earbuds that pop out when you move around too quickly. I just think that it should all be elegantly embedded and easy, and just slip on like you're putting a hat on, you know.
And the devices are all so different too. Like PSVR, the biggest knock is like the visual fidelity.
Yeah.
And so, you know, people knock it for that, but then Oculus has its own weaknesses, and same with the Vive. So.
Honestly, I think the PSVR has proven itself to be worth every penny.
Worth it?
Yeah, because there's so many titles for it, and it's
Ace Combat.
It's comfortable. Ace Combat was amazing.
Good,
What Burnout game does dangerous driving closest resemble in terms of handling? So you keep playing. Press the continue button. I think Burnout 3.
Yeah, probably.
Right?
Probably.
Yeah. Which is great. I mean, we literally just started playing this. Warco's now played this more than I have. But I'm busy playing another game called it rhymes with A's on. Yeah.
I wonder.
Or Maze One. I don't know. I don't know what I'm allowed to say about that game, but I've been playing that a lot. Why did the team from Burnout leave and release this instead of making a new Burnout at EA? Any rumors or reasons? Matthew Winstone. Well, I think EA has been shifting their assets around as they want to do. They're a big company, and they everything gets compared against how much money FIFA makes, I think. FIFA is just such a giant bundle of cash, and so when you're a huge public company like that, you look at the revenue that brings back to your shareholders, and you think every game should operate with that same amount of success. And Burnout didn't, although it was a critically acclaimed series and we all loved it and it sold in the millions. It wasn't enough millions, and I think they just couldn't figure out how to monetize it to the degree that other games that were bringing in lots of money to EA were. And so I think that's what it comes down to. I think that's what ultimately becomes a big decision at EA for a lot of their choices. And you can't blame them. They're a business, They're a business that has players first as their tag. And they're a video game company, and that's always been weird to me. Why do you remind people that players are the first thing that you think about? And I think it's because they legitimately have to remind themselves that players are the first thing that they're thinking about. But they're getting their butts handed to them with, people saying, I'm not happy with Anthem, I'm not happy with Battlefront 2. And suddenly we get this Star Wars Fallen Jedi game where there's
no microtransactions.
Right, where they're pumping that out there, and they do have these incredible, indelible franchises, and they could bring them back. And ultimately, games succeeding at that scale need a company like EA to help sort of bang the drum, right? So if we ever wanted to see Burnout lift again, like this game looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, but I don't think a lot of people are going to know about it out there. It's sort of sneaking in as an indie developed title. You need an EA to come out and say, we got Burnout. Like even when they did Burnout Paradise Remastered, that was a big, big deal. That was big news, and it was great for the franchise. And I don't know how it sold, but it created a lot of attention, and it was like, yeah, EA, do that, do more of that. And frankly, I wish all the game companies would do more of that. Activision has excellent franchises too, and there's been so much emphasis on how do we sustain these massive teams and these big projects, and how do we bring in billions for our shareholders. And I honestly feel like we were on that track so that these sort of mid-level success stories were going to add up to something really significant. But they became, especially for someone like me who was making television programming around it, very easy to show that off and say, look at how cool video games are. And I think it becomes a little more difficult when there's less of them being made, and the ones that are being made are ones that require you to give over your life to them and live in that world forever and ever, which isn't realistic. It works for the whales out there that have lots of time and money to throw at these games and loot up. But I think the constant flow of excellent sort of AA games is the secret to more people coming on board. I think that's what Google is betting on. I think that's what Microsoft is betting on with all of the studios that they're picking up. And frankly, EA made that statement or allowed that statement to get out about their Star Wars game, so I feel like they might be shifting towards that model again too. What will be the determining factor on all of this is a lower price point, a lower barrier to entry, so that these mid-level games aren't AAA priced and all beating up each other in terms of timing and marketing and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm speaking in utopian terms, but I miss these days, and it does suck that EA isn't sort of behind this with all of their marketing muscle.
But one thing EA does have, and as like a PC gamer, the Origin Access is actually pretty cool. Like, it gives you like so many games for like $5 a month, right?
Right.
And then you can put something like Burnout Remastered, and it kind of fits in there because you can have like a small experience and kind of play it for a little while and then move on to the next one, right?
Yeah.
So I think EA is doing certain things right, but obviously, certain other things they're getting wrong. So Yeah.
Jamie Andrews is asking, what can we expect from EP this week? That's a great question, and it's one that we're actually going to wrap the show up with. So if you had any other questions, I went long. You asked me about Burnout, and I had lots to say. But hopefully it comes back. Somebody says that Burnout is $6.50 on the Xbox store right now, $6.50 for Burnout Paradise Remastered. That's an amazing deal. If you've never played that game, jump on that. Incredible. Jamie Andrews asking what's up for the rest of this week, and we have excellent guests. Tomorrow we've got Jeff Keighley and Eric Jacobus on the show. We've got two guests. Jeff Keighley, we all know from the Video Game Awards. He's a former colleague of ours here on Electric Playground. He's coming in. It starts at 4 o'clock tomorrow. We're starting half an hour earlier because he's in town for TED, and he's running around from meeting to meeting. But he's coming on the show tomorrow at 4, followed by Eric Jacobus around 4:30. And he is the mocap actor behind Kratos and Mortal Kombat 11 characters. So he's going to have lots of great things to tell us. So that's tomorrow, Tuesday, special show on Tuesday, and a special show on Wednesday. I don't know how to pronounce this gentleman's last name, Michael something, I'd butcher it, but he is the lead animator on Toy Story 4, is our guest on Wednesday. So he's going to have some incredible things to talk to us about as well. Wow. So an exciting week. So it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, and no EP Lives on Thursday and Friday. But please come down to 390 West Hastings in Vancouver and watch live with these fine people. Thank you for coming today, you guys. Or you can watch the stream right here. If you dig what we do, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that like button. Hit that join button if you'd like to become an EPN member. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Have a great night and play forever.